Hi! Do you ever grumble? Today's story is about people who were grumbling because they wanted something to eat. When's it dinner time? They whined. Do you ever do that? Well, there are lots of people grumbling in our story today. In fact, thousands of people were grumbling. The story is in the Old Testament book of Exodus chapter 16. You might also find it in a children's Bible. God had amazingly rescued all his people from being slaves in the land of Egypt. And Moses was leading them to the special land God had promised to give them. But they found themselves travelling and camping in a desert. The people looked about and they couldn't see anything to eat at all. Their tummies started to rumble and they remembered about what they were eating when they were in Egypt. I wonder what sort of food you would imagine eating if you were them. Anyway, then they went and found Moses and they moaned and grumbled at him. "We'd be better off in Egypt," they said. "At least we had bread every day." The silly people had forgotten that they were also slaves when they were in Egypt. Well, God spoke to Moses and asked him to tell the people, "I will rain food from heaven, and here are my very simple instructions. Are you listening carefully? Every morning, each person must go out and collect just enough to eat for 1 day." That sounds quite simple, doesn't it? I wonder what sort of breakfast it was. Choose which of these you think it was. Well, you might be all right because the Bible said that then when they went out to collect it the next morning, the food was like flakes over the ground. Maybe a bit like the cornflakes. But it also says that it was white and fine like frost. So maybe a bit white like the oats with sugar on. But that it melted away when the sun came up. And it was called bread from heaven. And apparently tasted like wafers with honey. So maybe it tasted a bit like the toast. When the people saw it, they said, "What is it?" In their language, this sounded like the word manna. So it was called manna, which means, "What is it?" Anyway, when the people had collected up the manna, some people decided to collect more than they needed for 1 day. Maybe they thought they should stockpile it in case it ran out. A bit like some people have been doing with toilet rolls during the lockdown. But the next morning, when they looked at their store of manna, it was all gone bad and full of worms. Ugh! God said, "Why didn't you follow my instructions? They were so simple." Maybe you could stop the video now and try and talk about why this happened. See if you can remember exactly what God said about how to collect the food from heaven. Did you notice that God provided just the right amount of food that they needed each day? He didn't want them to hoard loads of extra food just in case he didn't provide enough the next day. Maybe this is because he wanted them to learn to rely on him. Nowadays, we too sometimes want to hoard things, like the toilet rolls, or to have a pile of money saved up, or to know exactly what will happen next, or we like to have all our events planned out on the calendar months ahead. Problem is, we can't do that very easily at the moment. So many things keep changing, but we can be sure that we have a God who will provide just what we need, one day at a time. Anyway, I've sent home to your parents some activities that you can do, and I hope you enjoy them. See you next time.